There have been so many powerful and influential women throughout history, and their impact is as significant in film culture as anywhere else. The representation of strong female characters is becoming increasingly prevalent in contemporary movie discussion. There's far greater demand for strong female representation. But what makes a strong character? Film as a whole has had many strong female characters, even dating back to 1927's Metropolis. There are hundreds of such characters spanning decades, and there is one who has remained in many people's memories. In 1984, with the release of the first Terminator, audiences were given a first glimpse at the character of Sarah Connor, a college student and waitress who must fight off a monstrous threat in the form of the Terminator. While coming to terms with everything around her, she's portrayed as relatively independent, though quite average. But as time went on, and the film spun into a sequel, Sarah Connor returns to the big screen alongside her son, sporting a new ferocious attitude and look. A maternal figure who also kicks ass. So, Sarah Connor is strong. But does that mean she's a strong character? Her makeover makes for a myriad of cool moments. But would she really be so iconic if all she did was fight off an unstoppable metallic force for 2 hours and 36 minutes? No, she's more than a shallow soldier. Throughout the sequel, Sarah must learn to care for John Connor as a son, not merely as the key to humanity's future. And her morals are tested when she's confronted with the chance to kill the man supposedly responsible for the apocalyptic future. However, despite her struggle to be a better mother, Sarah doesn't exactly maintain many feminine qualities, which can be shown through the cinematography and mise-en-scène. Throughout the film, Sarah's attire turns to a tank top with sunglasses, a look which, at the time, traditionally portrayed a strong male character like Dutch from Predator, McClane from Die Hard, or Rambo from, well... It instantly gives us a view of what they were going for, a female equivalent of a classic male action star. But clothes and shot angles doth not a man make. Sarah's personality also shifts dramatically from the first film, causing her to become less empathetic and far less concerned with her personal life. She's often filmed from a low angle, showing her power and control over the situation she's in, holding the large guns and saving those in distress. Furthermore, she's also quite muscular, another trend of powerful male action heroes at the time, and this was cause for some criticism back in 1991. However, when considering the context of the movie, one could fairly argue that Sarah's transformation is a reaction to her circumstances. But regardless, in many ways she becomes a masculine version of a female character, rather than a feminine character who possesses male traits. So, let's talk about someone who maybe has a bit of both.
Bridget Jones is a stark contrast to everything we've talked about thus far, but just as nuanced. Looking solely at 2001's Bridget Jones's diary, Bridget Jones is 32 years old, single, and in a steady job. She is considered by audiences to be an every woman, and is someone who practically all women can relate to. She's very proactive. After a series of relationship issues, she takes control of her own life, which culminates in the iconic scene where she puts her foot down and quits her job working for Daniel Cleaver.
For a person who, perhaps for personal reasons has been slightly overlooked professionally.
Thank you, Daniel. That is very good to know. But if staying here means working within 10 yards of you, frankly, I'd rather have a job wiping Saddam Hussein's arse.
This scene stood out at the time as it saw a female character taking a stand against her male superior, and it showed that Bridget Jones puts herself first. Furthermore, as much as Mark Darcy helps her to realise what makes her endearing and unique, playing a role in her development, which may make her seem more of a passive protagonist, she was an equally strong impact on Mark, and even her father to some extent. And, much like Sarah Connor, she too is flawed. She drinks heavily and smokes, and isn't terribly concerned about her eating habits. To some, it's these flaws when paired with those positive qualities that are what make her a well-rounded, realistic role model, and, to others, these are precisely the reasons that Bridget should not be considered as influential or inspiring as she is. A poll conducted by Sky Cinema in March 2020 asked 2,000 British women who they considered to be the most inspiring film heroines in history, and, among such cultural icons as Hermione Granger and Matilda, Bridget Jones found herself at the top of the list, sparking some debate. In an interview with Good Morning Britain, you can see both sides of the spectrum. Some find her inspiring because she is inherently flawed and takes strides to improve herself.
I feel like she is inspirational because she is us. She is that flawed character that, you know, you can relate to.
Others believe that she actually shows little overall progression throughout the original film.
I agree with you, you can find inspiring women in everyday situations, but Bridget, inspiring, I'm not so sure. For me, inspiring is about change, and it's about looking at someone who's gone in and transformed.
Some may even suggest that Jones is representative of post-feminist concepts. At least, depending on what you consider to be post-feminist. It's quite confusing and nobody can seem to make up their mind. But one of the most common interpretations, in the words of Angela McRobbie, is that post-feminism is an active process by which feminist gains of the 1970s and 80s come to be undermined. In regards to Jones, this is the case in that she takes advantage of her ability to lead a relatively successful independent life, but, in a contradictory manner, lets herself be consistently directed by pressures to find a romantic partner. But then again, it is Bridget who decides to keep a diary and keep track of her bad habits, and whilst her search for a man may be encouraged by other people, she seems more than happy to find one for her own well-being.
Sarah Connor is a female character who showed strength in a rejection of femininity through her extremely masculine appearance in T2.
And Bridget Jones is a feminine character whose strengths are her assuredness, confidence and determination that are, at times, undermined by her negative and ideal qualities.
So, which of the two represents the strong female character that audiences are looking for?
Well, it's both, as you have probably already guessed through rhetorical cues.
Both women are strong in their own right, and both have been a great source of encouragement and reinforcement for women worldwide.
Neither one is necessarily good or bad. That all relies on what you think is admirable and positive, and what isn't.
What constitutes a strong character is incredibly subjective. We simply cannot definitively say what is right or wrong, or good or bad. Perhaps you adore Sarah Connor's ass-kicking attitude, but simply cannot stand Bridget Jones's back-and-forth nature with regards to her love life. Maybe it's Bridget's relatability that allows you to connect with and admire her, and Sarah's over-the-top physique which makes her less realistic and harder to consider a real role model. Whichever side you're on, there's almost certainly something for you.
However, with more and more female characters, protagonists no less, being put to screen, it is being called into question whether or not their mere existence is as important as their depth. Taking the sequel trilogy's Rey into account, many feel that her lack of struggle and consequences make her a dull and uninteresting character who doesn't particularly serve as an inspiration to girls and women. But I digress. Both Sarah and Bridget are well-rounded, three-dimensional characters, and it is their determination to overcome the obstacles put in their way and resolve conflicts that arise around them that makes them worth rooting for. A good character should have layers, female or not.